Dean Marsh here, who teaches high school English at Active Shadows High School in Arizona. As a member of the National Education Association, she sees firsthand the effects of Janice. She was the Arizona Teacher of the Year in 2016 and a Democratic candidate for the Arizona State Senate now, and we welcome her to this proceeding. Ms. Marsh.
Thank you, Senators, for giving teachers a voice in this very important discussion. My classroom is set up in a circle, kind of like this, very much for that reason of giving students a voice. I want my students to know that they have a voice and to know that their voice matters. The same philosophy has propelled me through 26 years of teaching, and it is probably one of the reasons that I was named 2016 Arizona Teacher of the Year. Giving teachers a voice is one of the reasons I have belonged to the National Education Association and the Arizona Education Association for 26 years. During my tenure as Teacher of the Year, I went to the Arizona State Capitol almost every single week, where I met with legislators and testified before committees. Someone from AEA was almost always there. They were there fighting for our students just as I was. Witnessing that firsthand has made me an even more loyal member. In the post-Janice world, I expect educator activism to grow. I know from firsthand experience that teachers are not going away and are not going to be silent. And if anything, they've started to recognize the stealth that Professor McLean has referenced. This spring, before Janice was decided, the AEA teamed up with the hashtag Red for Ed movement. For the first time in Arizona history, educators walked out of their classrooms and gathered at the Capitol to protest working and learning conditions. Nearly 70,000 people, mostly teachers, took part in the week-long protest. It helped them realize that they do have this voice that I referenced earlier and that they can indeed use that voice. Now the numbers of educators involved in related activities like ballot initiatives and legislative campaigns continues to grow in Arizona. The Red for Ed movement gives me hope, and I hope it gives some of you hope as well. And we need that hope in this post-Janice world, a world in which teachers, and indeed all public employees, are under attack. In response, we are becoming more engaged, speaking out, and organizing both locally and nationally. As we have seen in Arizona and on a national level, we are fighting groups with endless amounts of money that, again, Professor McLean has referenced, and they will not be giving up their attacks. But we also know that no amount of money can silence America's teachers. We will continue to fight to keep public education thriving and ensure that educators and students get the respect that they deserve. I'd like to close by thanking you again for inviting me, and by extension, teachers in general, to be here, and by assuring you that educators will fight any and all attacks on public education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marsh.
So being in the union has, as I kind of alluded to in my speech, certainly given me a voice, certainly has given other teachers a voice. But I'm going to actually go to one specific anecdote that kind of delineates the power of unions, period. In the spring in Arizona, the Red for Ed movement was taking off, which was actually kind of going around the country. And that was pretty much grassroots. AEA, the Arizona Education Association, came in and supported as Red for Ed, which was just grassroots teachers who had had enough, finally started to realize the stealth and recognize the nonsense that's happening. So this grassroots group is rising up without the infrastructure to really do anything, to rent porta potties at the Capitol, for example, to have, the resources to buy enough water to make 60 or 70,000 people safe. So AEA came in and offered that like foundational support for this grassroots movement. And that is on a big scale pretty much what the union has done like throughout my entire teaching career, on of course a much smaller scale, but it's that same concept of allowing the voices to come forth by providing the foundation and support that individual teachers or even a big group of teachers need in order to be effective. Thank you all.
For detail on how you were successful, right? Because we're looking at Arizona. We also saw these teacher movements in West Virginia. We saw them in Oklahoma. And in the past, the sort of right-wing organizations have been pretty successful at convincing some folks in the public that the unions are just out for themselves. And you were clearly successful in persuading the broader public in Arizona that the public had a stake in helping teachers to succeed, because teachers were also fighting on the front lines to help students succeed. Can you talk a little bit about how you were successful at converting your movement into public support? Because that is going to be essential, it seems to me, as we go into this battle over Supreme Court justices, making those connections. And I'm really curious as to how you did that.
I think a lot of what unfolded started years before. We have a couple of local columnists who have been very much on teachers' side and publishing op-eds. I published an op-ed. I mean, there has been just a lot of kind of bubbling support for the fact that teachers are, that in Arizona we have a teacher retention crisis. I mean, we are at crisis proportions. We finished the school year with roughly 2,000 classroom vacancies, which means roughly 60,000 kids, if you figure 30, which is actually really conservative, because my classes are not at 30 students per class. And I think that narrative, teachers and the help of other more friendly, powerful people really brought that attention up. So by the time Red for Ed came and teachers walked out, we already had a great deal of public support. And there was one other thing that we did that I think was probably a game changer. And I don't know if other states did this as well, but we had walk-ins. So a couple of weeks before our eventual walk-out, we had walk-ins on Wednesday morning. Teachers wore red. We had signs. We went out of school boundaries, invited the community, and, kind of held signs out in traffic for a while, but then walked in, literally arm in arm, and walked back into campus. And I think that visual of that happening across the state was incredibly powerful, and really had a lot to do with the success of the actual walk out.
Right. And I see in your testimony, you say you believe in the post-Janus world, educator activism is going to grow, which is something that Weingarten has said, because now people realize that you've got a Supreme Court stacked against teachers, and that message was sent loud and clear. And so I know we're all very focused on doing the kind of engagement that Ms. Weingarten talked about, and hoping learn the lessons from your ability to let the public know that when you have all those vacancies, it is really hurting their kids and the future of the state. And the same is true when you've got hospital workers who are not being paid adequately. It hurts everybody. So I know we're going to follow very closely what you did, and I know I look forward to continuing the conversation so we can learn those lessons, because you clearly connected the low pay for teachers with the with the fact that people's kids and the education of their kids was suffering as a direct result. And we need to make sure we make that connection across the board.
Yeah, I think that what I would want the community to know, the broader community, is two things. One, all of this is not a conspiracy theory. This is actually true. We were talking about this ahead of time, like that some of our friends might think we're a little crazy. We're not. This is all true and it's happening. But more importantly, we flat out, and I know this is cliche, but we need people to vote. If Democrats had voted when they should have for the last 10 years, we would not be in this situation. If the 60,000 people who were down at the Arizona Capitol actually voted, and maybe all of them spent 1 hour on a local campaign, because we can't fix the framework that Nancy's talking about being so broken, but we can slow it down by electing the right people into office.